All right, so we're going to talk about tips for preparing for a panel interview. They don't happen that often, but when they do, it may make you a little bit nervous. So the first thing is, normally for an internal position, that means you're already working for the company, people will usually tell you, you'll know when you're going to have a panel interview. They'll usually tell you how many people. You may even know who will be there, because you may get an invite if it's going to be done virtually. So if you feel like you want to know who those people are, what roles they're in today, you can research that. I don't really feel like that's really that important. I think that most of the time interview panels are still, they have a set of questions they're going to ask. They're usually using that STAR method. And that the fact that they work in different areas really doesn't matter. Sometimes the hiring manager just wants diversity of thought going through that process. So I wouldn't get too bogged down in trying to know who they are, where they work. And then if it's an external hire, you wouldn't know the people anywhere or have any way of finding out, any more about them. But just my thoughts on that. Now, when it comes to the introductions, again, you're always going to have two different scenarios. Are you in person with people? You want to say hello, smile. I would let that person take the lead on whether you're shaking hands or not. Some people post-COVID don't really want to do that. And then if it's virtual, you're going to be introduced to everybody. Again, make direct eye contact with them, smile, and be pleasant. You may be asked to introduce yourself really quick, so be prepared for that. Keep it really, really short and brief. So then engaging everyone. You're going to have each person, of course, take turns asking you questions. Be sure to answer them directly, but you want to look at the other panel members too. You want to always, pay attention to them. You want to show engagement, and you want to make sure that you're making that eye contact every now and then. They know that you're going to be looking at your notes and looking down. That's fine. Now, you may be worried about what types of questions they're going to ask you. Most people traditionally ask those STAR method questions, where they want to know the situation, the task, the action, the result. Now, you can be applying for a job where it's more of a creative position. It's something totally different, and then whatever that business is or whatever that type of work is, it's very different, and so they may ask different types of questions. That's usually the only time you're going to run into that. But most of the time, they're going to be normal questions where people want to know a time when you've done something, an example of when you've demonstrated a behavior. So you can count on that STAR method most of the time. If you have one of those times, if you're in one of those arenas where it's all about exercising or being creative, you know your genre, so just be prepared for that type of thing. But for the most part, it's just going to be those standard interview type questions. Now, the dreaded overlap questions, where you're thinking, oh, that other person already asked me about that. What am I supposed to do? So my best advice to you there is, if you stick to the question that you were asked and give them only what they were asking for and not elaborate and go too far, that always gives you the opportunity to come back to that same example and share something different about it. And I'll tell you why that is. You may have talked about something and another panel member is interested in a different aspect of that. So they ask you something different about it. But if you still have that in your back pocket to talk about, you can say, hey, I did organize this and that's what you were asked to do. But then another panel member asked for a different aspect of that, and you can say, oh yes, we did run into a problem with that, and here's how I handled that. So just be prepared for that. They're your stories, you know them, you know what happened, and so you just take your time and answer what they need. You may be referring to an example that they've heard about before, but it's okay. You're talking about a different aspect of that answer, so don't get nervous about that. They understand what they're doing. Sometimes the interviewer is curious about something that you spoke about, and so they want to know more about it. That's a good thing. Every now and then that may happen because you maybe didn't give a complete answer and they're asking you, but that's okay too. Just give them the information that they need. It's fine. So panel member personalities. So this is one of those things that only you will be concerned about. But I will tell you this, as an interviewer, and I've interviewed hundreds of people, I'm pretty stoic when I interview. I don't try to give anything away. You know, there are people who are super friendly during the interview and they're smiling and they're complimenting you. Don't let that throw you off. People have different personalities. There's no conspiracy theory. Don't worry about it. I think you need to spend more time thinking about knowing your stories, your examples, focusing on answering the questions, and just stick to that, because out of those panel members, they are going to have different personalities and they will interview differently. But don't try to think about that too much. Don't let it throw you off. So what questions should you ask at the end of the interview? Okay, so depending on the job that you're applying for, you really may have some relevant questions that you want to ask. So prepare them ahead of time and be prepared to ask. Don't have a ton of questions, but then the other thing I'm going to tell you too is do your research before you interview with people and really know a lot about the company and their culture. Only ask what you really need to. Now, someone in the panel who talks about the job or the role may have piqued your interest about something and you have a question, and so you weren't prepared for that, but that's fine, ask it. If you watch any of my videos, you know that I am a proponent of, at the end of the interview, use that time to sell yourself. Use that time to tell them something about you. During the interview, you're really just answering the questions that they ask, but you may feel like at the end, but they don't really know me, or they didn't find out something I really wanted them to know. Well, this is your chance to share that with them. This is also your chance to stand out from other people. This is your chance to tell them how excited you are, how you plan to make an immediate impact, how you can make that immediate impact. And what I call that is your 1-minute elevator speech. And I have a video on that. And it does make the difference. It makes you stand out from everyone else, which is what you want to do. That's how you win the job. So check that out. Okay, so the next thing I'll tell you to do is just for your own composure, just try to stay calm. One of the things you want to do before you interview, especially if you're doing it virtually, prepare ahead. Find somewhere comfortable to sit. Don't sit somewhere where you're not comfortable at all. Get ready ahead of time, but just try to relax, breathe, and pace yourself. Now, the follow-up after the interview, you'll see lots of people suggest that you email them, within 24 hours. That's fine. And then you also can thank them for the interview. You could mention something that resonates with you from the interview, a takeaway that you had. Keep that short. If there are any things, if you have a portfolio, if you've got a brag sheet, anything that you want to share, if you didn't already share that with them during the interview, if you couldn't hand it to them, then attach that and include it. That's another thing that's going to make a huge difference. And again, you can watch my video on creating a brag sheet.